Think of the excitement of being a kid on the first day of school. Now imagine what it would feel like if your family couldn't afford to send you with a backpack and school supplies. Help Goodman Community Center give every kid a great start to the school year by supporting their backpack and school supply drive. Visit goodmancenter.org/backpack drive to learn how you can buy supplies and drop them off, order online and ship to Goodman, or simply make a donation and let Goodman do the shopping. Every child matters and every gift helps. Today on CityCast Madison. It's Thursday, so of course we're dishing on Madison's food scene. Madison, heck, the whole state of Wisconsin loves a supper club. But what exactly defines a true Wisconsin supper club? We're bringing back our conversation with Madison Magazine's editor-in-chief, Andrea Behling, who earlier this year published a definitive criteria list and shared her top locales to experience the real thing. While we're talking about iconic Madison area restaurants, when was the last time you went to Merchant downtown? Merchant is a sponsor of CityCast Madison, and it too has a timeless charm. Located in the heart of Madison's first settlement district, Merchant's a pioneer in Madison's cocktail culture. And they've got a newly renovated chic space, which they make the most of with evolving programming, including jazz nights, date night specials, and a knockout brunch. So get over to Merchant too if you want to experience something truly iconic. It's Thursday, July 10th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Andy, welcome to CityCast Madison. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. My first time chatting with you guys. I'm excited.
Yes, and on such a fun topic. We're here today to talk about something Wisconsinites know and love thoroughly, supper clubs. One of the reasons we're talking here today is Madison Magazine claims to have, quote, the definitive Wisconsin supper club criteria, unquote. These guidelines came out of a survey that you published that got over 1,000 responses. So clearly folks have thoughts. Can you tell me a little bit more about this project and how the idea came about?
Yeah, so it's really funny. We sat around our edit team talking about what our supper club story was going to be like. And we're like, you know what? What is a Wisconsin supper club? Because it's so debated. People say it has to have a relish tray. It has to have a coat rack. These kind of really nuanced things that a place needs to have to wear that kind of badge of honor of being a true Wisconsin supper club. So we said, let's ask people. Let's see what they have to say. And I thought that I was doing my due diligence, and I had 28 pieces of criteria of things that I thought people would say, okay, it needs this, but doesn't need that. I left an open-ended question at the end of the survey. And yeah, over 1,000 people took the survey, and I got over like 150 write-ins from other things that people thought a supper club needed to be a true Wisconsin supper club. So in the end, we narrowed it down to 135 pieces of criteria, and it kind of became my story. At first, I was like, I'm going to nail it down to the top 20, 30, 40, but really, there are a lot of kind of quirky things that people responded. Some people say it needs not just wood paneling, but smoke-stained wood walls and a cigarette smell or yellowing walls. At first, I was like, I'm not including that. That's gross. But I think we would have been remiss if we didn't include that, because people have these memories at supper clubs that they kind of define the genre around.
Yeah, it's kind of that character and history.
Totally. Yeah, there is so much character, so much history in our supper clubs. You know, some people say no TVs. Some people say it should offer reservations, but some say it doesn't have to offer reservations. All of these little things that when you look at the list in full, it gives you a really clear picture of what people think the Wisconsin supper club tradition should look like.
If like a filmmaker was wanting a supper club and they want it authentic, they need to come to your guide. So they've got it fleshed out.
Yeah, and we came down to, you could use this list, could be, if you wanted to kind of put it into action, 135 pieces of criteria. I don't think every single place would mark every box there, but if they marked at least a good portion of it, I think it's safe to give it that label.
And Andy, while we're talking, I just have to point out, speaking about like character, you have the best Wisconsin accent. Like you're just like the perfect person to tell us this story, honestly. I'm like, oh, yes.
I get told this all the time by my family and friends, and I've lived in Wisconsin for over a decade. I'm actually from Illinois, but the Wisconsin accent is strong, and you hear it when you go into supper clubs too, for sure.
For sure. Let's actually dig further into the results. The first category is atmosphere, right? So what does a supper club have to have inside in order to have the real deal ambiance?
Yeah, one of the original pieces of criteria that I included on my list that got us 68% agreement from our survey takers was that the lighting needs to be a bit moody. And 34% agreed that the atmosphere has to inspire nostalgia, which I know that's kind of a big umbrella term, but I think that people can understand that it kind of has to look like it's a little bit from the past or maybe have elements that remind you of another time.
Did anyone say anything about Mad Men? That's some vibes that I've gotten at like Tornado Room.
Oh, totally. Tornado Room for sure, especially that like red mood lighting in the bar area. Nobody brought up Mad Men specifically, but a lot of people said that it needs a coat rack, that regulars need to fill up the bar, wood paneling and or wood accents. Taxidermy was mentioned. Some say that it has to have a lot of seating around the bar. It has to be playing vintage style music. Like I said, some said no TVs, some said a low ceiling, some said deep red booths, but really it kind of came down to a place that inspires nostalgia and has an intimate atmosphere.
Yes, and if you have like lower ceilings, that'll definitely do it in part, just like closer spaces and deep, cozy booths. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And we mentioned Tornado Room. Do you have other places, or including Tornado Room, that do a good job curating the ambiance here in Madison?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think Toby's Supper Club, which they actually ended up on our cover for this issue, they've got those red tablecloths that kind of set them apart. And it's almost like the red kind of disappears as all of the Supper Club dishes start being delivered to the tables. Driftless Social is also an interesting kind of almost case study to, is it a Wisconsin supper club? Because it's a newer place, but it's brought to us by the same schmuck family that ran Smokey's Club, and they have a lot of the same Smokey's Club memorabilia in there, but it feels more kind of like a modern establishment. And then one that I'm really excited about that actually hasn't opened yet is the Yodel Room. This was part of the new Glarus Hotel and Restaurant renovation. They actually have a sunken bar that people will remember if they went to New Glarus Hotel and Restaurant when it was open. They are renovating the space, keeping a lot of those really fun and historic details. And the sunken bar, for sure, it's one you kind of walk into a room and the bar area is a little sunken, so the bartender's kind of like eye level with his patrons. And there's not a lot of those in the Madison area, so I'm excited about that one.
God, I love the name. That's so yodel. That brought a visceral reaction to me. I love getting this news. We'd be remiss to not talk about the menus, right? It looks like there was a consensus from the majority of your survey respondents on two things. A Wisconsin supper club has to have a good old fashioned, and it has to offer Friday night fish fry. Of course. What else does the menu need to have to qualify as a supper club?
Yeah, so right after that was prime rib on Saturdays. That one has specifically been tied to that Saturday special at supper clubs. But then a lot of other people felt really strongly that it has to have a shrimp cocktail option. And then the potato sides, which I agree with this. For me, a supper club has to have a potato options that include kind of different variations. You get hash browns, baked or mash, or French fries. But the list really goes on of what people are wanting to see on that menu. And again, I think this ties to the memories that people have from their favorite supper clubs. But people say that they want both surf and turf options. Some get really specific that Texas toast comes on the side with the meal. That some people said family style options. And then other things like a large ribeye, 18 to 24 ounces. And really all of these, when you look at the list, these are almost word for word from the survey. I've edited them lightly, but people got as specific as needs to be 18 to 24 ounces for a ribeye on the menu. And also French onion soup. That's a big one that I think a lot of people get excited about when they see on the menu. Nashoda's Red Circle Inn has a really great French onion soup that I called out in this issue, but you'll find it on the menu at many supper clubs across the area.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. That is my absolute, like, godly food in my heart. Like, there's just the caramelized onions and the cheese and the bread. Ugh, French onion soup. It's a soup after my heart.
I'm with you. If it's between that and salad for the super salad starter, I'm going with French onion.
Yeah, and I feel like, when you're talking about those really specifics, like it needs to be this many ounces, it's just all steeped in tradition and people having those experiences and being told, like, this is the way to do it. When folks ask for Wisconsin Old Fashioned, that might be confusing to some people who aren't actually from here. So I feel like we should note that we use brandy instead of whiskey, and the Wisconsin version can be ordered sweet or sour. It's got some more things going on. Andy, how do you order your Old Fashions?
Oh,
Do you do a Wisco?
yeah. So I do when I'm feeling really kind of nostalgic and looking for that, true experience. Lately, though, and actually I just went to Green Acres in Sauk City for dinner last Friday to celebrate my mom's birthday. I did not go the Wisconsin way. I did a bourbon old fashioned with cherries. Some people order it with olives too, but I feel like that's part of just as long as you know that when you order an old fashioned, you kind of have to specify how you want it. It's kind of like knowing the supper club language in Wisconsin, which is really fun.
On July 19th, experience a night of wonderful music under the stars. Join Madison Opera for Opera in the Park, a free concert in beautiful Garner Park. A Madison summer tradition, Opera in the Park draws thousands of people to enjoy a concert of excerpts from opera and Broadway. Opera in the Park 2025 takes place at 8 p.m. on Saturday, July 19th. The rain date is Sunday, July 20th. The concert features music by Mozart, Bizet, Puccini, Beethoven, and more, performed by Renee Richardson, Emily Tragle, Andrew Bidlack, Benjamin Taylor, the Madison Opera Chorus, and the Madison Symphony Orchestra, conducted by John DeMaine. The audience is always invited to conduct with their light sticks on a special number. So pack your picnic, gather your friends, and join Madison Opera in Garner Park on July 19th to celebrate the power of connection through music. Learn more at madisonopera.org.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
Sticking with food, you may or may not see these offerings on a menu, but the unsung heroes of the supper club, it's crudité and bread. For those who don't speak French, what is crudité and why is it special to supper clubs?
Totally. This got its own section outside of the menu for us in this article because, people have very strong feelings. Crudité it's raw vegetables. It's that veggie tray, or in some places it's a cup or just a little side dish of sometimes complementary vegetables that come before the dinner. And this has been a long-standing tradition, and in some places has gone away. I think it's become increasingly harder for restaurants to kind of offer that complementary dish when margins are so thin as it is. But patrons still kind of enjoy that, and it sets the supper club apart from other places, is that when you get to your table, if it's not a crudité plate or platter, it's complimentary cheese and crackers, it's a bread basket, or even, a salad bar option that would come with your meal.
I'm totally expecting it when I go to a supper club, and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a raw radish and these things that it's just like not super American to have raw vegetables before your dinner, but it's also really good for you. So like, it's very French and I like it.
And I don't know if that's us making up for, I'm going to eat a couple of pieces of these raw vegetables before I totally indulge in this giant, cut of meat and mashed potatoes and this really kind of just indulgent meal. Maybe we're just like trying to even the scales.
All in the name of balance.
Right? Yeah.
It looks like one category that folks couldn't come to a consensus on was the location for a supper club. What's up with that? What's your take? Where should they be?
Yeah, yep. And the people that have really strong parameters around the supper club, some say that it has to be on the edge of town. Historically, the supper club was a destination restaurant that people would pack up the whole family and you would drive an hour to a restaurant and have this kind of lavish meal that lasted a few hours. And it was what you did on a Friday or Saturday night. And then other people got even more specific and they say it needs to be near or not far from a lake or river. So it has that kind of river, waterfront element. Some have strict guidelines that it has to be in a certain place in Wisconsin. One survey taker says that it had to be north of Highway 21 and even, and gave the direct quote, "Sorry to say that any outfit south of that line is a pretender."
I'm dying.
Yeah.
The great pretenders out here.
Right. I don't know if I agree with that, but, there are a lot of supper clubs that are beloved by Wisconsinites that are on the edge of town or in a remote rural area. One we called out is 3 Mile House Supper Club that is in the town of Hazel Green, population 1,177. And this would kind of fall in that textbook destination supper club category.
Yeah, I feel like the first time I was told, we're going to a Wisconsin supper club, it was like a destination. It was going to a place and having a whole experience kind of out of town. And I love the ones that are on the water. I do like that rule, but I will go if it's not on the water.
And it totally, does that mean that Tornado Room in downtown Madison doesn't fit the criteria for Wisconsin Supper Club? I'm not sure.
It's on an isthmus, so it's not too far.
True.
Well, so the final category in your supper club rule roundup is, quote, staff, service, and history. I think this is really what makes supper clubs so special. One of my favorite rules listed said that a supper club should have, quote, at least one server older than 70 who treats everyone like their own child, unquote. Why do you think history and service in these spaces are just so important to people?
Yeah, I mean, when you get down to it, that's really at the heart of the experience. It's the people that are keeping those places going, but it's also the people that you meet within those supper clubs. I've done interviews with so many supper club owners that I ask them, what's the most special part of keeping this place going? And it's always goes back to the people. It's the memories that they make. It's the people that they meet. And some of these supper club owners, they are serving multiple generations of the same family. A family would come in and now their kids are coming in and even their kids are coming in. So, sometimes it's 3 generations that these restaurants are serving. But this was the category that it got really nuanced too, in terms of what these places should look like. Dinner only hours. Some of these places do only open starting at 4 or 4:30 p.m. I included this in my original criteria to ask, does the history have to date back to a certain time period? And that kind of didn't get a great consensus. So people aren't as worried about, it has to be over 20 years old, 30 years old. Most of them said that the establishment date really doesn't matter. But family-owned status was pretty important, that they wanted these places to be owned by a local family or a local business that feels like it's part of your town, which really the supper club is. They help define a place and a people in a way that I think not a lot of places do. So there's a lot of character in the supper club.
Yeah. And are there any more locations you can name out there were standouts in this category?
Absolutely. Yeah. Quivy's Grove in Fitchburg, I think, is at the top of the list here. They have this just beautiful stone house and stone stable grill. It's in this kind of historic old barn, and it's just a beautiful location. There is also Donnie's Glidden Lodge in Sturgeon Bay. So if you're ever in the Door County area, this place dates back to the 1930s, and it was supposed to be the lodge for a golf course that was never built, but it was turned into this supper club that's right on Lake Michigan, and it's got this expansive view of the lake and is just a beautiful historic place. And then Also, the Del Bar. I'm sure a lot of people in the area have gone to this Wisconsin Dells Institution. They've been there for over 80 years. Had to call them to get an update because it's been a year since I've interviewed them, but they now have 15 staff members who have been there for more than 10 years and 2 that will hit a decade in the next few months. And it's just the longevity of the people within these places is pretty admirable.
The Del Bar is a throwback for me because I grew up in Baraboo. So I'm like, oh my God, yes, the Del Bar. I went there with, my grandpa and our family. But also it was a hot spot for prom night because it was like the fancy, the Del Bar. Man, that brings back memories as the point of this whole conversation. Man, what a fun job. I want to go to the place in Sturgeon Bay so bad. That sounds incredible. You've been deep in the responses and doing your research. Was there anything that surprised you after you got the survey results?
I wasn't totally surprised by all of the little details that people felt strongly about. I was surprised by just how many people chimed in. We only had our survey open for about a week. I had to cut it off because I'm like, I can't sift through more than 1,000 responses. I can't do it. I'm just one person. So I bet if we would have let it go longer, there would have been so many other answers. And I think that the only thing that kind of surprised me was my own kind of confidence in tackling a subject like this, because I'm like, oh, I know Wisconsin supper clubs, but there are so many memories out there. There are so many kind of expectations that I'm kind of glad I did the survey format just so that I could collect as many perspectives as possible. So yeah, I would say that. I still feel like if you've been in Wisconsin for a very long time, you might feel like you know a lot about the supper club scene. But to me, it's like there's no way anyone in a single lifetime could learn all there is to learn, visit all the places there are to visit in the Madison area in a way that makes you feel like, yep, I'm a supper club expert. I think my educational experience will continue and I'm kind of excited for it.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, I'm just thinking like when I think of supper clubs, something that is like, this is the identifier. It's a silly one because all the ones we mentioned are wonderful, but I think a grasshopper, like the frozen cocktails. What is it for you that's just like, oh, this is a proper Wisconsin supper club in your own experience and feeling?
The grasshopper is a good one. I agree with you there. For me, I think it does go back to the brandy old fashioned. I remember the first supper club I think I ever went to in the Madison area was Quivy's Grove. And I very distinctly remember being in the bar area, not even knowing how to order, a brandy old fashioned sweet, but seeing the people waiting for their tables. And they all had the same drink in their hand. They had a tumbler and it had muddled cherries and orange at the bottom of their glasses and a cinnamon stick in it. And I'm like, what is going on here? It's like, I wasn't part of the club yet, but that memory sticks out to me because now, I've been back to Quivy's Grove several times and I'm one of those people that's got that old fashioned in hand, waiting for my table. I know that I'm going to order the hash browns with my fish fry. It's really a ritual. And now that I'm thinking this through and talking it out loud, it's really the ritual, knowing that you're going for an experience that defines the supper club.
Andy, our supper club queen, thank you so much. This has been extraordinarily fun and full of information. We really appreciate you coming on CityCast Madison.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thank you for having me.
That's Andy Behling, editor-in-chief of Madison Magazine. If you want to know more of the criteria for what defines a Wisconsin supper club from their cover story, head to our show notes for a link. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone in your life who loves nostalgia? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Until then, eat well.